Welcome there, viewers and the audience in the studio, to this segment of the show. Like I said in the beginning, we have back with us our guest who I had a while back. Dr. John Mphaphuli was here before to talk about personal finance. And here today, he's wearing a different hat altogether. John has his doctorate in religion and culture. He's an anthropologist. And he's here today to talk around that issue because, John, you are also known for going around talking about multiculturalism, like you put it.
Yeah.
And which better context to speak into this than into Africa? John, you know that in Africa, the major part of our strife when it comes to, if it's civil war, if it's political unrest, even if it's economic upheavals, it's sometimes, many times, goes around the issue of ethnic differences. Ethnicity and the strife surrounding it has bedeviled Africa for a long time.
Ethnicity,
tribalism, and all the rest. We normally would say that we'll give reasons for it, but how do you see it from your learned position? How do you see this whole issue of our strife around ethnicity and tribalism?
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and to the viewers. I think this is holding Africa back. Instead of advancing, we are so divided along things that shouldn't really matter much. When we talk of multiculturalism, we are, especially from the Christian point of view, we are saying we are same and different at the same time. Now, unfortunately, because of tribalism, ethnicity, and many other few things, we are more focusing on our differences.
People say that the reason we normally, one of the main reasons we put out is that our countries were divided based on European economic considerations in the day for the scramble of Africa, colonization.
Yes.
So we were all put together without considering that we are different. But I beg to differ because God put all those differences there. And whether you like it or not, no matter how you draw the thing around, you're going to find that your neighbor is different from you. Don't you think so?
Yeah, it's true. Jim, if you look, in the context of South Africa, for an example, when you go to the east of Limpopo, you will have Tsonga-speaking people who are in South Africa and also in Mozambique.
Yeah.
When you go to the southern part, you have got a province called Free State, and you have got Basotho, and you also have the country Lesotho with Basotho. When you go to the north, where I come from, you will have Venda-speaking people, and across the river Limpopo, you will have Venda-speaking people, and all around South Africa. But look, the point is, yes, I agree, colonialism and whatever, but we still had different tribes before colonialism.
Yeah.
If colonialism it's a problem, it might be a problem on other areas, but not tribes fighting one another or talking bad against each other and giving each other wrong names that actually separates us. And forgetting that before we speak different languages, before we eat different food, we are first of all human beings created in the image of God, and we have the same needs everywhere.
Now, you normally speak into this, to speak to the roots of what brought about our differences, and I want to open up the door for you to talk about it. I always find it very interesting that we are a product of our environment.
Yeah.
Our culture is a product of where we found ourselves.
Yeah, which simply means, we are all human beings created by God, and we all have the same basic human needs, which is food, shelter, relationships. You can go on and on and on. But the challenge that brings the difference, which we need to understand, is that let's use food as an example. The reason that some people eat food different from others is based on their fiscal environment where God had placed them. We are now discussing this from KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa.
Yeah.
Now, KwaZulu-Natal...
Where majorly the Zulus that live here.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now KwaZulu-Natal it's a coastal province in South Africa. Where I come from in Gauteng, which is Joburg, and Limpopo, it's inland provinces.
There is no sea around.
There is no sea around. Now, because of that, you will find that people in KwaZulu-Natal will explore the sea in order to meet the need of food.
Which is the same need the other people have.
Exactly.
But the way they meet it here is
different based on their physical environment. The same thing will be those of us who are from inland, we will also have the need of food, but we will explore the land because we don't have sea.
Yeah.
Now, here is something very interesting, and I'm sure you will see that, some of people attending here starting to pull their faces. For an example, in Limpopo, there is this thing that we eat called mashonja. Some of you will be, what is mashonja? And now, in South Africa, some people like saying mupani worms. Now, mupani is a tree. Now, this creature I'm talking about, they eat mupani leaves. Now, can I say, mupani tree or leaves is the same plant which the bucks and the springboks and all the bucks eat.
Yeah.
Is the favorite tree.
Yeah.
Now, this mashonja that I'm talking about, eat that. But then if you come to KwaZulu-Natal, it's so easy to find people who are living in KwaZulu-Natal because they're not exposed to this creature. They may go, oh, no,
It's a
I will
worm.
never eat it's a worm. And, I can't eat worm.
What kind of culture is this?
Yeah, what kind of people are you? You eat this oat. Oh, I feel like passing it.
I feel like vomiting.
Yeah, and people will bring all sorts of expressions. What people forget is that I am eating my mashonja because my environment only offered me that.
That one.
Now, those who are from KwaZulu-Natal, let's make an example to say, because they've got sea, they will eat what we call prawns. And the moment you talk about prawns, then you let people, oh, that's beautiful. And now, if people in KwaZulu-Natal will call my mashonja mupani worms, now, let's follow the same line of argument. Am I justified to call their prawns sea cockroaches?
Because it looks like cockroaches too.
No. Biologically, they are cockroaches. They don't look like. But, biologically, they are sea scavengers. What do? Must we continue analyzing them?
No, you've hit the nail on the head. You're basically saying that we come to the earth with the same need. We're the same. We need food, we need shelter, we need love. We're all the same. But God puts us in different locations.
Exactly.
And over the time, over centuries of our history, our ancestors have learned to exploit their environment to meet the same needs. And in exploiting it, they created a type of life. When we come back from the break, John, I'll be speaking to how do we begin to break down this walls? How do we deal with long-standing pain, if you like? It's the same even in South Africa where you have racial differences because of injustice done in the past. So it's not even me eating your food as much as me finding a way to find you because of what I feel your fathers or your ancestors have done to me. Viewers, we're talking to John
Mphaphuli.
Mphaphuli, your name escaped me there. Mphaphuli.
I understand.
The first thing that came to my mind is Mupani worms.
Not mupani worms, mashonja.
We're talking to John Mphaphuli, who doesn't eat Mupani worms, he eats mashonga.
Very good,
And he's,
very good. I like that one.
When we come back from the break, we'll be trying to dig deeper to understand how to heal the divides between our different ethnic groups. Don't go away. We'll go for a short break. Hi there. This program is made possible by the generous donations of people like you who believe in our vision. Our passion is to be Christ-centered as well as Afrocentric as we discuss the issues that face us in Africa so as to equip and challenge African believers like you to be salt and light right in their neighborhood. Your gifts to this ministry can make a huge difference. I encourage you to prayerfully consider partnering with us today. Please go to our website to find out how you can give today. Thank you in advance for your support. Welcome back. Thanks for that. Welcome back to the second segment of my discussion with John. And thank you for correcting me before we left. It's Mashonga, not
Mashonja.
Masonja, not Mopani worms.
Yes.
Don't insult the man because you don't understand his food. But I was saying, John, before we left, that this goes deeper. Ethnic strife goes deeper because of the history that comes with it. And many times the reason why the suspicion stays is that the pain is there. Where do we start to find answers? I mean, you've done a good work of explaining to us why we are the same in terms of our basic need. And I always look at people and I go, he, just like me, he has his fears and he has his love, he has his hope, he has his aspiration. He wants his children to do well. You know, we're all humans. But then there is this layer of suspicion. Where do we begin to, you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Where do we begin to go about it, or understand it? Or
in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 19 through to 23, I will not read it, I will just paraphrase it. Paul, who we know, he was born a Jew, and Paul called by God to minister to the Gentiles. You can see it's crossing culture.
Crossing culture.
And hence we talk about...
And the Gentiles were actually very separate from the Jews.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, Paul says, though I am free, I make myself a slave to everyone. Though I am free, in God I'm free, but I choose to make myself a slave to everyone. Then he finishes with these words. What is the reason? He said, for the sake of the gospel. So for the sake of the gospel, there is no price, no sacrifice that I will not pay in order to advance the gospel. Now, we as the church need to understand that, are we going to be stopped to advance the gospel just because these people eat or speak or show respect or do some actions that I'm not comfortable with? Therefore, I will not reach them for the gospel. The temptation is, then I will start trying to change them to be like me before I change them to be like Christ. And we are called not to change people to be like us. And this is where colonialism and missionaries had the biggest challenge. They wanted to clothe us, they wanted us to eat with knife and fork, but they will never want to eat with hands. They wanted us to speak their language and never want to learn our language. And everything that we do was demonized without understanding. Now, we need to say, what is at stake in the church here?
Yeah.
What is at stake is this image of God, it's lost. And we are only separated by food and clothes simply because now we understand we were raised at different places. Socialization was different, but this same person who is different from me needs the gospel. And Paul says, I do all, because he said, for the weak I become weak, to the strong I become strong, to those with, without the law I become like one without the law, for those with the law I become like one. And he says, I do this so that I can reach as many as possible.
So we need to put the gospel before our ethnic identity.
Yep.
So you're not saying we shouldn't celebrate our different ethnic identities,
no,
but we should be, as Christians, those who put before our ethnic identity our Christ identity.
Yeah, I'm saying let's start with our sameness before we look at our differences.
Yeah.
So we do not downplay our differences, but let's measure on the sameness, because the sameness will help us to understand that they are human, they need the power of the gospel, they need Jesus just like us, and after that, we allow each one to remain what God has made them to be. So we celebrate our differences, but not at the expense of our sameness. We do not, because the danger is we can choose to celebrate our sameness and assume that we are not different. Or we celebrate too much our differences and forget that we are the same.
God wants you to hold the two in tension.
Yes.
Celebrate your difference, but realize that you are the same. But I'm speaking particularly to this issue of hurt from the past. And if you've gone around a bit, you know what I'm talking about. That residing behind the issue of the divide is the fact that the man across there it's not just like different from me, but he doesn't look out for my back. If I turn my back to him, he's going to stab me. So it affects my politics. It affects even my economic relationship with him. It affects the way I relate. I've just come in from South Sudan, and you know, John, people normally would say to me, I met a man on the plane some weeks ago, and he was speaking about the Nigerian situation, and he was saying, you know, the only answer is let's divide the country. Let each man go to those who are his affinity. You know, let these ones go away. Let's all go to our side. It's not the same in South Africa. That's why I'm trying to speak to something that is, and this is not just Nigeria, it's around. So I said this to him, and I'm saying this to anybody watching from Nigeria or other parts of West Africa, that look, the answer is not in separating. And I gave the example of South Sudan, which I visited around October last year. Thank God for the peace treaty going on there. But the point was that for as long as the ethnic groups in the South had the northern oppressors as their common enemy, they were together. Once they were divided from the northern oppressors and they were together in that the newest country on earth, South Sudan, suddenly they saw their differences again and remembered their historic parts. And suddenly there was civil war again. Because it's not about those people, it's about how do we handle ethnic relationship? How do we forgive the past? How do we live together? Because are you now saying South Sudan should divide again into two? Then again, the smaller tribes will see themselves. How far do we keep dividing to be in reality? So the answer is not in dividing. The answer is in finding ourselves in the entity where we are. And John, I want you to speak into that, this whole issue and where the church should be on this matter.
Yeah, you know, you can talk about South Sudan, you can talk about Zimbabwe, you know, you've got the Ndeveles and the Shonas, you know, you can come to South Africa, you know, for an example, you have got Zulus, you have got Xhosas, and you ask if they do visit each other. In most cases, you know, you can go to Rwanda, you can talk about Hutus and Tutsis, you can go to Bosnia, you can go to Sri Lanka. This is everywhere. We need to show respect to one another. You don't respect the person because the person eats or act and do things exactly like you. You respect them because they are human beings.
Yeah, made in the image of God.
Exactly. Number two is what we call tolerance of ambiguity. Tolerance of ambiguity simply means we need to know that if I eat mashonja, the whole world does not eat mashonja. If we are to deal with these suspicions and looking down upon others and thinking we're better than others, is that if I go to a context and people are eating something different or doing something different from what I know, I must keep my composure. You don't start passing judgments like, oh, this is ugly, I don't like this, because the moment you say that, what is influencing you? It's your culture, it's your personal preferences. So you cannot convert the whole world to eat your food or dress the same like you. Tolerance of ambiguity.
That mustn't even be our goal. Our goal mustn't be to make everybody look like us.
Exactly. Number three will be being non-judgmental. Being non-judgmental is if you see people saying or doing something which is not the same as you know, unless you have a scripture from the Bible, don't say it's wrong.
Because it's different.
It's just different. For an example, there is this thing that, you know, because I also train in corporate. You know, whenever we train HR practitioners, human resource practitioners, there is this thing that when someone comes for the interview, you knock and they say come in, and when you come in, there are empty chairs here. You don't sit down. You wait until someone offers you a seat.
Sit down
now, in other cultures, you can't offer me a seat. If I walk in and there is an empty seat,
that's an invitation already.
Exactly. To say come in, it means there is a place
sit at home.
But then you know, we've got students who are desperate for a work. They are denied an opportunity to work because they were marked on the scripts, no manners. He or she sat down without
not knowing
without permission.
It's just a cultural difference.
Exactly. And then there is this thing of eye contact.
Yeah.
What is eye contact? You cannot define it, Chim, by saying, I'm looking you straight in the eyes. other contexts says, if I look you straight in the
You are being
eyes, in
disrespectful.
Zulu, they will say, Wadelela. You know, in other words, I'm looking at you in the eyes, I'm like, who do you think you are? I don't care.
Yeah.
Now, if I really show you respect, eye contact will mean I look away from you. And even if I'm talking, I can look aside, but don't assume
that is a form of having something bad he's trying to hide.
Exactly. And number 4 will be personalizing your observations. Personalize. In other words, if you say something which is not exactly what you grew up into or you were taught, don't rush to again to say it's wrong. Personalizing one's observation. Let's bring it to the church. There is this thing that during weddings and we talk about Valentine's Day. We talk about husbands love your wives, which is a biblical truth. And I also want the viewers to separate this. There is a biblical truth and there is a cultural truth. If I say, let's say I'm preaching in a big church like this, and I go, husbands love your wives, you must buy your wife flowers, you must step aside for your wife to go out first. The moment I'm explaining how to love, I must be careful as a preacher to say, I'm no longer preaching
the Bible. I'm using cultural examples.
I'm using culture.
Yeah.
Therefore, what about people who do not subscribe to that culture?
John, we're having to learn this, unfortunately. I just want to say that talking back to the issues where we carry hurt and all that, there is no other way than to forgive. We must, as a church of God, begin to take a radical step in forgiving.
Forgiveness will never be fully experienced when it comes to cultural or tribal. The biggest word here is not to try to change another person, but try to understand another person.
Yeah.
The key is understanding each other. Why, and I'm just going back to the same question. Why does John eat mashonja? The moment you understand why I eat mashonja and I don't eat your prawns, and I must understand why do you eat prawns and you don't eat
it begins to bring us together.
Exactly. Now the problem is some people want to be understood without trying to understand others.
Which is the human nature. We always want to be understood.
Culturally, I think without saying it, I feel and I think like my culture is the best
superior.
This is God-given culture. Everybody must bow to
It's called ethnocentricity. It's
ethnocentrism.
I feel that what I have is God-sent, and everybody else must have it. John, unfortunately, we will start to wind down. We have to learn this. It's been engaging, and I think this is something we all need. John Mphaphuli is the CEO of SA School of Millionaires, but he also he holds a doctorate in anthropology and gives seminar on this whole issue of multiculturalism. And John is available. You can go to the website www.sasom.co.za, which is on the screen, and you can easily get all the resources and find out how you can book John for your corporate meetings, churches across Africa, or wherever you need him to come share the wealth of knowledge God has given him. This is where we'll draw the curtains on this segment of the show. I'll be back to round up soon. Don't go away.